Um, Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to mention to our Zoom people that if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we're going to hold questions till the end. So, oh, I want to mention one more thing. Keep September 19th on your calendar because I have engaged Rick Bunting, our favorite presenter, for an in-person program right here. That's a new development. The third Friday, I believe that's the 19th. So our speaker this evening, Kathryn Davino, is a retired high school biology teacher from Delaware Academy in Delhi. She's an enthusiastic birder, gardener, and observer of wildlife. She has served on the board of directors since 2016. Terrific. Tonight, she will share her world cruise with us. Looking forward to learning all about it. Welcome, Kathryn.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. And good evening to everyone joining us here at Elm Park Church, as well as those joining in on Zoom. So my husband, Al, who, by the way, is in the audience with a very, very fancy shirt that he bought in Indonesia. Anyway, so my husband, Al, and I were looking for a different way to escape the winter cold of 2024. So we decided to book a 4-month world cruise with Viking Cruise Line. I kept a daily journal and we both took many photos, many photos. So this program will provide the highlights of the wild things, both flora and fauna, that impressed us along the way. Uh-oh. Let's try that. Oh dear. I'm having trouble forwarding. Well, it was working before. It just sort of kept going. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's in a different.
Tell me that again, Susan. I'm sorry. Top corner.
I'm thinking it might not realize you're in the panel.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys, for the hold up. The computer doesn't want to talk.
So let's go. I'll just have you click here and then try it.
So, doesn't seem to want to, it used to be the space bar. If I go like that, can I get it to go that way? Ah, yay, something's happening now.
You got
Okay,
it.
sorry for the delay. Okay, so that's me and Al, just before embarking upon our 4-month adventure. For those interested in the ship, the Sky behind us holds 930 passengers when full and is considered to be a small passenger ship. So it can sail into smaller ports than most of the giant cruise ships can. Okay, here's the map that lays out our path for over 120 days. See if you can see my cursor. So we started at Los Angeles. Oh, shoot, go back you. No. Okay, we started Los Angeles, worked our way to the Hawaiian Islands, then south to the French Polynesian Islands, then over and down to New Zealand, then across the Tasman Sea to Australia and up the eastern seaboard and on through Indonesia with many stops throughout and there until finally we got to Sri Lanka and India. And then we headed pretty much straight south and a little bit west to 2 volcanic islands near Madagascar called La Réunion and Mauritius. And then on to South Africa, 3 stops in South Africa. Then we passed from the Indian Ocean into the Atlantic and ended up in Namibia. And for 7 more days, we went at sea and landed in Senegal. And then 3 stops in Morocco. And then we headed to Europe, where we stopped in Portugal, Spain, France, and ended up in England. So that was 120 days to Greenwich, 30,872 nautical miles. Now, I want to also say Viking always provides a collection of guest lecturers throughout the journey that offer cultural enrichment designed to shed light on each destination's history, art, religion, nature, and more. I became quite fond of George Srenko from British Columbia, who was our shipboard naturalist for about 8 weeks. I will echo George's question. He used to begin every lecture by saying, "Are you ready for a wild time?" Okay, so let's begin by considering what you might see out on the open ocean, especially when you're far away from land. Boobies love to follow the ship, catching some wind when they soar close, and possibly alighting for a rest. I'm not certain about the brownish booby in front, maybe a red-footed booby, but the white and black bird is a masked booby. Here's a closer shot. When they're not catching a breeze, you might see boobies taking a soaring plunge dive to catch a fish. Now, I find flying fish to be fascinating. They come bursting forth from the forward sides of the ship, often in little groups, and they skitter across the water for several yards before plunging back in. They resemble cigars with wings to the naked eye. I spent several hours throughout the cruise trying to film them, and I never produced anything worth sharing. So I must credit these photos to Carla Hayes, a fellow passenger who had a similar love for watching wildlife, but she had way better gear and way better photographic skills than I do. Here's a great shot that freezes the action across the water. Just an amazing shot, Carla. She and I were among a small group of passengers who formed a bit of a nature photography club, and we shared our photos with one another, even doing a shipboard presentation. About 99% of the photos you will see tonight are mine, but there may be a few from our group. We did some snorkeling near the island of Moorea in French Polynesia. This purple coral was quite striking. These large yellow anemones were protecting a small group of juvenile damselfish. And the black-tip reef sharks were trolling for an easy meal of small fish, crabs, or an octopus, but never for me. Now, we did a walking tour through Papeete, that's the capital city of Tahiti, where we saw many free-ranging chickens and pigeons. I began to think about how abundant and widespread some species like the rock pigeon might be. So I began taking photos whenever I saw one. While chickens may be the most abundant, 25 billion, due to their domestication and use for food, I did not often see them wandering free as they do in Tahiti. On the other hand, I have a photo of the pigeon, often large flocks in nearly every port of call. I'm sure you're glad to know that I will not include many in this program. On to New Zealand, a country of warm and welcoming people, diverse and beautiful landscapes, and very unusual creatures. These tree ferns of New Zealand give the forest a primeval appearance. Now, the Maori people of New Zealand admire the Pohutakawa tree for its strength, as it can grow large, clinging to rocky cliffs. They call it the New Zealand Christmas tree, since it flowers at Christmas time. This shrub is one of the many cultivars that have been developed that are widely planted. The silver gull is very common along the New Zealand coasts and also in Australia. It's a striking bird with a red bill and red legs with a white eye in the adults. There's also a black-billed form. The variable oyster catcher loves to troll the shore, poking in the flotsam for a meal of mussels, snails, and various small crustaceans, stabbing or hammering with the brilliant red bill. You might also find a pied black and white form in some areas of New Zealand, hence the name variable oyster catcher. Now I'm including a bonus slide. This photo did not come from our 2024 trip. We were so fascinated with New Zealand that we decided to return this past February. We visited Stewart Island, at the southern tip of New Zealand precisely for the opportunity to join a guided walk for nighttime kiwi spotting. We were not allowed to use flash photos, but I was able to shoot this video of a kiwi foraging in a grassy lawn in the dim light. They feed on small invertebrates like insects, earthworms, spiders, and snails. They cannot open their bills, which are sensitive and designed for probing for food. Being mostly nocturnal, they do not have color vision. So our guide was able to shine a red light on the animals without disturbing them. They have very good hearing. So our small group had to be very quiet. Kiwis are solitary and territorial, so you rarely see more than one together. Now, I borrowed this photo from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, so you get a better look at a kiwi. They're fascinating flightless birds with only nubs for wing bones, and they lack a tail. Their strong, thick legs and clawed feet serve them well for digging burrows and finding food, and for defending territory. Their feathers appear hair-like, lacking the stiff rachis and interconnecting barbules we see on birds with flight feathers. These birds are considered vulnerable due to habitat loss and predation from introduced predators like brush-tailed possums, stoats, which are a kind of a ferret, and rats. But conservation efforts abound in New Zealand to protect them. Truly a strange and fascinating bird. Okay, now back to 2024. This Australian magpie was introduced to New Zealand and does well there, wherever there are grassy lawns. It's about the size of a crow, but it's not closely related to crows. I photographed this pretty bird in a park where it was foraging in the grass, looking for insects or frogs, lizards, even birds and small mammals. The magpie lark takes us across the Tasman Sea to Australia. This much smaller bird has similar patches of black and white and is sometimes called the wee magpie. My guess is that the brown feathers indicate a juvenile bird. The magpie lark was photographed in the Royal Botanic Gardens of Sydney. While the flowers and trees are spectacular there, I much prefer watching the birds. Join me on a stroll through the gardens. More than likely, you will see a white ibis strolling through the grass, headed for a shallow pond. Near the pond would be a dusky moorhen. Here's a close-up of the pretty dark teal head feathers and a red bill tipped in yellow. Pretty bird. We were thrilled to come upon a laughing kookaburra, a native kingfisher. They are famous for their distinctive call, which sounds like a goofy laughter. This bird sat on a branch, fixated upon the grass below, and then flew down to pounce on something we didn't see. It could be earthworms, insects, or a host of other possible invertebrates. And they do also eat fish. The black-shouldered lapwing loves to forage for invertebrates in short grass near wetlands, hence his rather dirty bill. It has yellow flattened wattles that hang on either side of the bill. This beautiful bird moved gracefully and slowly through the lawn. As I stopped to take photos after a moment, he stretched out one wing to reveal a bony yellow spur, which they use in defense. I took that display to mean that I might be making him a little nervous, so I quickly moved on. The sulfur-crested cockatoos were out in force as we strolled through the gardens. They certainly get your attention with their harsh calls and nasal squeaks and squawks. We came upon a raucous flock of about 20 birds who were feasting upon the little cones of a Chinese swamp cypress. Here's a close-up. Pretty guy, pretty bird. Well, we sailed from Sydney south to Phillip Island off the coast of Australia and home to a colony of little penguins, the smallest species of penguins in the world. Since the 1920s, ecotourism here has been drawing people from around the world to experience the evening penguin parade. It is estimated that these penguins entertain 500,000 or more human visitors every year. We joined many others on the bleachers up on the sand dunes on shore, waiting for the sun to set. During the day, the adult penguins swim out to feed on fish, and then they return at sunset. As the light grows dim, small groups begin to emerge from the surf, cautiously huddling together as they parade past the onlookers. Guests are forbidden to employ flash photography since it frightens the birds. The photos you see here are provided by the Park Service website. The penguins do not seem to be bothered by talking or loud noise, and park guides offer information about the penguins' life history while this is all going on through loudspeakers. The Park Service supports the penguins by providing additional nest boxes, and they erected handrails along the walkways to protect the birds from the visitors. Here are two chicks peeking out of their box in the late evening, awaiting their parents' return. The colony becomes very noisy when the adults return, as they call for and greet one another. This is what a young penguin looks like when it gets its adult plumage. They are sometimes called little blue penguins or even fairy penguins. Now, in the visitor center, this sign keeps track of the daily counts and the timing of arrival. And you can see that sunset was coming earlier and earlier as we were heading into fall. We saw this Cape Barren goose foraging on the grasses on the dunes surrounding the colony. It has striking red legs, black feet. They look dirty, but that's really the color of the feet, and a bright yellow cere above the bill. Now, they also call this the pig goose. I didn't hear the goose vocalize, but recordings sound very much like pigs grunting. We also saw a swamp wallaby foraging on the dunes. It's a small wallaby, about 3 feet long, not including the tail, and they usually come out at night to feed on grasses and shrubs in the morning and evening, so they are crepuscular animals. Now look who followed us back to the ship. We woke the next morning to the sound of field crickets chirping and hopping all over the outside decks and our balcony. I suspect that they flew from Phillip Island onto our tender boats that ferry us from ship to shore. A few were still chirping several weeks later as we made our way toward India. Now, as we sailed around the north of Australia and went through the many islands that make up Indonesia, we stopped first at Rinca Island, one of the parks that protect Komodo dragons. These are large, venomous monitor lizards growing up to 10 feet long, weighing in at more than 300 pounds. When hunting, they rely on camouflage and patience, lying in wait for passing prey. Dragons have sharp teeth and claws to bite and deliver serious wounds. Their venom is loaded with toxins that lower blood pressure, cause massive bleeding, prevent clotting, and induce shock. Animals that happen to escape are only temporarily safe. Dragons can calmly follow an escapee for miles as the venom takes effect, using their keen sense of smell, aided by their flicking tongue, to home in on the corpse. They use their long tongue to sample airborne molecules. Tourism on the island helps support conservation efforts and their dwindling populations. You'll note in the video that the tourists film from above on sturdy walkways out of reach of the dragons. Komodo dragons call 5 small islands in Indonesia home. This makes them the predator with the smallest home range in the world. When we arrived at Batu Caves in Malaysia, there was a huge crowd of people visiting the impressive complex of temples near this colossal statue of Lord Murugan. After climbing 272 many-colored steps, there were more temples and shrines within the caves at the top. What really caught my attention were these long-tailed macaques. These highly adaptable monkeys were present in large numbers on the temple grounds. We were warned to be wary of them and keep all our belongings like sunglasses and phones tucked away, since the macaques have learned to grab things. And if they can't eat them, they expect you to trade food to get your stuff back. This little group has gotten a hold of a water bottle, which they learned to smash. Shut that down. Suddenly we're getting volume. Which they learned to smash open, and then they drink the contents as they leak out. There was a large troop present, scattered throughout the stairway and the plaza. But in reality, their species is facing significant threats, including habitat destruction, hunting, and capture for pet trade, biomedical research, and for entertainment. Despite this worrying trend, they are not a protected species in Indonesia. In fact, they are the most heavily traded and exploited primate species in Indonesia. This female macaque has found a healthier meal of coconut. They are omnivorous, foraging on fruits, seeds, leaves, and even small animals like crabs when they're not eating humans' food. Now, we came upon this unusual cannonball tree planted as an ornamental in a botanical garden in Penang, Malaysia. It is more naturally found in the rainforest of Central and South America. The large ornate flowers emerge from special branches growing along the tree trunk near the base. The flowers develop into 8-inch edible fruits that resemble rusty cannonballs. I would love to see what they taste like. I never had that opportunity. As we sailed through Indonesia, I became aware that there were virtually no gulls to be found. But these Brahminy kites became more and more numerous as we made our way toward India. These raptors were quite common along coastal waters and rivers we visited throughout Indonesia and west to India. They don't migrate, but they may move around to follow food. They generally eat small vertebrates, including fish, as you can see from the photo, and sometimes they eat while they're on the wing. Has a beautiful white head, just like our bald eagle. Now on to Sri Lanka. During a Colombo city tour, I was lucky to look up and spot this flying fox, a type of fruit bat, in flight. They are important pollinators, and we saw them in several tropical gardens and parks. On a bus trip through the Sri Lanka countryside, I snapped a photo of this colony of bats resting in a tree beside the highway. I can't be sure if they're fruit eaters or insectivores, but they sure have decimated that tree. One of my favorite excursions was a visit to an agro park in Sri Lanka. This farm began as a rubber plantation. You can see the old-fashioned approach to collecting the rubber tree sap by cutting into the bark, which makes the sap run, which runs into a cup, which is basically half of a coconut shell. That's how they collect the sap. We were shown how they turn the collected rubber into thick sheets for shipping. Now, the farm over the years expanded to offer a wide variety of plants, such as coconut, papayas, jackfruit, pineapple, coffee, and tea, to name a few. This woman here is harvesting tea leaves. We were shown how these branches were made into cinnamon sticks before being sold. The farm now grows 70 different banana varieties and serves as a banana gene bank. We were given a sumptuous Sri Lankan lunch prepared from farm-grown ingredients. What a feast. You can see all of the different kinds of fruits and vegetables they grow on the right there. While the food was amazing, I was equally impressed with the bird life that abounded here. Turning from a monoculture of rubber trees to a broad diversity of plants supports many bird species, and the trees were alive with bird calls. This farm is lucky to have these black drongos since they feed predominantly on insects that are often agricultural pests. The black-hooded oriole eats mainly berries, fruits, nectar, like our orioles, and some insects. He ate well on this farm. Now, these guys were foreign to me. A small flock of jungle babblers were seen chatting and displaying in the courtyard. Their flocks are socially connected into groups of 3 to 20. Each group is an extended family consisting of a breeding pair with offspring. The groups defend common territories in which they live all year round. Most or all group members cooperate in breeding by guarding the nest and helping to feed the young. The left photo was taken at the agro farm in Sri Lanka, while the right came from India, where we will go next. House crows are abundant near humans throughout India and much of Indonesia. They are omnivorous scavengers. Their distinctive bluish-black plumage with gray neck and chest set them apart. Quite pretty. The Cornell lab indicated they have been introduced to the USA somehow. So watch for them. If you're in like North Carolina or South Carolina or some of those southern states, there were dots on the map where they might be. We saw this open bill along a river in India. Now, if you look closely, you'll see a small gap between the upper and lower mandibles. Let's see if I can move my cursor over there. Will that do that? Yeah, let's see. Where are you, cursor? No. I don't see where it is. Ah, there it is. Okay. It's right there. There's kind of like a little rounded opening of sorts. It doesn't shut. Anyway, they feed almost exclusively on apple snails, and the unique bill allows them to skillfully extract the snail from the shell. This Indian pond heron is most likely a juvenile. It reminded me of a juvenile green heron with its very similar size and also that striped front that you see on a juvenile green heron. This great egret was coming in for a landing along the river in India. We saw them in many places in ports or wetlands, usually a few at a time throughout our trip. Not so often as pigeons, though. The great egret has a very wide range when considering where they migrate to breed in orange and where they live year-round in the purple areas. They're really in a lot of places. The most remarkable egret encounter came when I was observing from my balcony. A great many birds were swirling about the Senegal harbor, and I watched an egret spear a fish while in flight. It was way too deep to land, but the bird still got fish. I have never seen that before. Okay, we sailed south for 7 days on the Indian Ocean and stopped at the island of Mauritius. We visited an amazing garden, the SSR Botanic Garden, where we found an enormous shallow pool brimming with Amazon water lilies. The lily pads are 3 feet in diameter and able to support a small child. Next stop was the neighboring volcanic island of La Réunion. We opted for a tour of a vanilla orchid plantation. Here you see, these are the vanilla beans that are ready to be harvested here. Okay. Now, as we went over to Africa, to South Africa, and reached Richards Bay, it dawned on me that we were seeing gulls again. I am not certain about this species, but gulls were abundant along the coast from this point to the end of the journey. In Richards Bay, I went on a bird watching excursion, the only one they offered the entire time we were on this world tour. Anyway, and I saw so much more than birds. This white-faced whistling duck was paddling around a pond with a small flock of other ducks. And this is a black-headed heron, which reminded me of our great blue heron. Doesn't it look a great deal like it? They're about the same size, same kind of color patterns, only darker colors. Instead of great blue, kind of more black. They also are classified in the same genus, Ardea, so I guess that might mean they're somewhat closely related. Okay, this was my first encounter with dung beetles. This brief video shows one beetle doing what they're famous for, rolling a ball of dung, probably from a zebra. The dung is taken to a burrow and is used for food for the adults and developing beetle larvae. Dung beetles are very good flyers, and when we first arrived at the reserve, there were many in flight. I nearly mistook them for slow flying fat hummingbirds. We passed by this little warthog family while driving in the reserve. Now I can tell that this is a female on the right because she has only 2 spiky warts. Let's see, they're right here beside her eyes along her snout. And she only has those 2. If this was a male, he would have more down the snout. at least an extra pair. Now, another bonus animal during our bird walk was an encounter with a small troop of vervet monkeys. They were frolicking near the walkway. They are adapted for life in the forest and the savanna and are found in the south and east parts of Africa. This juvenile vervet has really got the cuteness factor. By contrast, I'm going to bring up this patas monkey, which was actually much further north in Senegal. The patas is a ground-dwelling monkey distributed over semi-arid areas in West Africa and into East Africa, along the center of the continent. With their long limbs, they are ranked as the fastest primate on Earth. Pretty too. Look at that beautiful orange. Black marks on the face. Very pretty boy. We went on several safaris, traveling by 4x4 through large game reserves. It was exciting to see the magnificent animals interacting naturally in the wild. I will try to keep my remarks brief as I take you on safari, since many animals are familiar to you. Here you can compare a brown fluffy female on the left to the male ostrich with black feathers on the right. Now, this white rhino has had his main horn trimmed. If you look to the left, it looks like a stump. They do this so that he will become less attractive to poachers who would kill the animal for the horn to sell on the illegal market. And certainly poaching is one of the major threats to the white rhino. Now, here are some elephants. Now, I know these are female elephants because if you look at their forehead, it looks a little squared off. Well, there's a little thing up there, so maybe you can't see it as well. Anyway, they have a more angular forehead. They travel in herds of females and juveniles together. The matriarch elephant was leading the herd and choosing where to feed. So that's her in the front. And there's quite a few actually behind her. They're all kind of piled up there in a line. As the herd approached our vehicle, the matriarch lifted her trunk to smell us before moving on. They can be aggressive if they sense danger. And of course, we have to end with this baby elephant definitely has that same cuteness factor. Okay. Cape buffalo are large, robust herbivores known for their strength and unpredictable nature. Those curved horns can span up to 4 feet. Now, if you look closely, there's a cattle egret down by his feet. Did you know the cattle egrets originated in Africa and then spread around the world? Plains zebras are social herbivores known for their distinctive black and white stripes. Their stripes are unique to each individual, they say, aiding in camouflage and also social interactions. The wildebeest, or gnu, is that how you say it? Do you pronounce the G? Or new? I'm not sure. Is host to a beautiful Cape glossy starling. Isn't he pretty? They provide a great example of mutualism, as the starling gets an easy meal and the wildebeest becomes free from parasites. These sleek impalas can leap up to 10 feet in the air and travel as far as 33 feet in a single bound. No wonder they want to name cars after these. Now, look carefully at the back end of this waterbuck. The distinctive white ring and lighter coloration on the hindquarters help the waterbuck blend into its grassy environment. And the contrasting colors may confuse predators when they flee. And I know this is a female because she doesn't have any horns. I find the hartebeest to be stunningly beautiful. They are one of the fastest antelopes and most enduring runners, capable of reaching speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour. These qualities gave rise to their name, which means tough ox. Don't you just love the color of the face? The one on the right is an older, more mature male with all the black on the face, the forehead and snout. Just gorgeous. And speaking of gorgeous, the sable antelope is named for its rich, dark brown fur. Now, fun fact, both males and females have horns. So I can't tell you if this is a female or a male. Pretty. Okay, And now for the most deadly large animal in Africa, the hippopotamus. They have large, sharp teeth, and they can be aggressive when they sense danger. Their deadly strength makes them one of Africa's most dangerous animals. The likelihood you will die in a hippo encounter is higher than that of lions and sharks. Somewhere between 500 and 3,000 humans die each year from hippo attacks. Now, we met this handsome lion in Scotia Game Reserve, South Africa. He was just posing, such a pretty boy. Now, we met him again, maybe 10 or 20 minutes later, when he was gnawing on a carcass of a giraffe. These 3 giraffes seemed very interested in watching him feed. Perhaps they were aware of what he was feeding upon. As we sat and watched, the 3 slowly inched closer and closer and closer until the lion gave a snarl and began to chase him away. We were told that giraffes could actually kill a lion by delivering a forceful kick. The lion gave up quickly, though, and returned to eating in peace. As we approached the harbor of Cape Town, South Africa, a large pod of dolphins were frolicking around the ship, providing loads of entertainment and photographic opportunities. I'm not exactly sure what kind of dolphins they are, so I won't make a wild guess. Moving up the coast after going into the Atlantic, we stopped in Namibia at Walvis Bay. Our morning tour took us out to the shore, where there was an enormous flock of flamingos feeding in the shallow, salty water. There are way more over there, too. Can only get so many in the shot. Now, the flock had a few lesser flamingos with their dark pink plumage, red eye, and dark bill, but the majority were the greater flamingos. When you compare them side by side, you can easily see the greater flamingo's paler plumage, lighter colored eye, and black-tipped bill, and they actually are slightly taller, hence the name greater flamingo. We drove up the coast to a place where the sand dunes of the Namib Desert kiss the shore. Many of us took the challenge of ascending the dunes. This dune was about 500 feet tall. The tallest dune in the whole desert is about 1,000 feet. Here is a view from the top. The desert stretches miles and miles across Namibia and goes into part of Angola. Or is it Angola? Angola. Now, I want to talk about the baobab tree. When you're in Africa, you got to talk about the baobab tree. It is a strange looking tree that grows in low-lying areas on the African mainland, Madagascar, and also Australia. It can grow to enormous sizes and might live 3,000 years. There are 8 species of baobabs. We found this one back in that garden with the giant pond lilies in Mauritius. The woman in the photo will help you see just how large this specimen really is. Now, I found this thing on the ground near the baobab, thinking it looked like a mushroom. Then it came to me that it was a baobab flower, just an old one. So I found this photo on the internet to confirm that it was indeed a flower. I also learned that they bloom at night and are bat pollinated. This baobab was photographed in a reserve far north in Senegal, where they were going through a dry spell. Dry conditions stimulate leaf drop. They store large volumes of water in their trunks, so elephants and other animals chew the bark during the dry seasons. This is a black kite. It's widespread throughout Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia, and is one of the most common raptors that you see in many areas where it occurs. We found dozens of them soaring around our ship and fishing in the harbor at Senegal. You can see this guy has caught a fish and he was actually eating it on the wing. And this is where we saw the egret catch a fish on the wing. As our world cruise was winding down, we made our way to England. This jackdaw is a small crow, family corvidae, that we saw at Dover Castle. He has a distinct cap that's black with a nape of contrasting pale gray, not quite as bright as the house crow, but similar. And believe it or not, the last nature photo I took was, I had to do it, this pigeon in Greenwich. They really were seen in every port. Anyway, that's my program. Thanks so much for being a great audience. Okay. Again, thanks for being a great audience. And if there happen to be any questions, I'll try to give an answer. Go ahead, Johanna.
Way back at the beginning.
Okay,
You said that they can't open their bills.
right. The kiwi cannot open its bill. I believe it's more like it sucks in the food. I don't believe it has a very protruding tongue, but I would check on that. But they do not open their bill and they just kind of suck it in. It's very soft, I think, too. Their bill is kind of like a little flexible. Yep, they're probing, and when they get a good spot, they just kind of keep staying at that same spot over and over and over again. It's also why it's really hard to take a photograph when it's really dim light, because you need like a really fast shutter speed and you can't do it in really dim light. So all my photos were like a mess. So I didn't even try to show a photo, but the video came out pretty well. Yeah. Thanks for your question. Okay, what do we got?
One was if you didn't mind sharing, like, what's the cost of a ticket for a cruise? Would you repeat that?
Oh, yes. The question was, would I mind revealing what is the cost of a ticket for a cruise like that? So I will call upon my husband, Al, who's our financial guy, to kind of help me, remind me. And of course, I think it kind of matters what sort of great deal Viking is offering at the moment, to be really honest. But what would you say?
It also depends on what stateroom you have.
It does depend on what stateroom you have. There is a range. There are a range of staterooms. Some are much bigger and spacious. Everybody gets a balcony of some kind, but there are smaller ones and medium and a little larger and like huge.
There were some people who probably paid somewhere in the vicinity of about $90,000
For one?
for two.
So for two people, Al was saying that they may have paid in the vicinity of $90,000.
That had really fancy. I think they
The
let us-
Explorer Suite, is that what it was called? It was very, very fancy.
They let us that it was about $250,000.
Yeah, someone said that it was $250,000 for the really fancy suite.
We didn't
So
have-
we did not have the really fancy suite. Okay, was there another question?
I have a question, only because we've been delving into carbon impact. So with Viking cruise lines, are they, like, how do they deal with carbon? Like, I know when you fly, you do carbon offsets. Like, how does that all work with a cruise? And like, especially like a really long cruise like that?
And are you asking, Susan is asking about carbon offsets and thinking about climate change, and you're asking about Viking's initiatives to,
So I was wondering, like, do they have any particular way that they frame it? And if, you know, like, do they promote, like, what activities do they do that might minimize?
to be honest, I don't remember. Alan, do you want to jump in here? I don't remember if there was anything. I know that they're very conscious about polluting the ocean. And in fact, it's really interesting if you take a tour of the galley and whatnot. They have actually this big bone crusher where they put in all of the leftover food, the bones and everything. They actually heat everything up. So they kill all of the pathogens, any bacteria. And then it gets all crushed into little pellets. And then they actually let it go and they feed the fish in the sea. Because it's all basically like compost, essentially. Now that I can bear testament to, because I saw that and we talked about that at length. Yeah, I guess I'd have to go and research the Viking website to see if they're making any kind of big deal about being more carbon neutral and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything much for you there. I don't recall that, and we need to take them to task, I think. I think we should. All right. Oh, somebody has a question back there. I didn't quite catch that. What's that again? How big are they? Well, let's see. I don't have the exact dimensions with me, but they are very small, like maybe a foot or less. I think they're less than a foot. They're very little. I'm trying to think, we saw the Galapagos penguins in the show that I did a while ago, and they're even a little bigger than these guys that are in Australia.
Question is, do you need a visa?
Do you need a visa? Oh, when you're traveling the world, depending on the countries you stop at, you might need a bunch of visas. And so that's where Viking can be very helpful. They have an office that will help you get all the visas together that you need. You do have to make out the paperwork though. And, there was a lot of handing passports back and forth depending on where you go. Do you want to add anything to that, Al, about visas?
They have a company that they work with called Gen Visa, and part of the deal that we signed up for was we got that shirt.
Why don't you come right up here, because then I won't have to repeat. I won't be able to have to repeat what you say.
Okay.
You guys just look at the little green dot.
Hi.
Come on in here. Come on right in here. Come on.
They have a company called Gen Visa that they work through, and part of the deal that we signed up, when we signed up for this deal, they had free business class airfare. They had free drink till you drop
Which of course we never did.
beverage package.
It's too much.
They had Gen Visa services that you could have. They had forward luggage carrying. So that's the thing that kind of attracted us to this, because there was so many little perks that they added on.
And
to
shipboard
it.
credits as well. There
And
were
shipboard
shipboard
credits and
yeah,
stuff.
There was a lot of.
The Gen Visa handled the visa. Now, surprisingly enough, this was not terribly complicated. In a lot of instances, they would actually, get a visa for you, and they were able to do it right on board the ship. There were about maybe 7 countries where we had to actually get the visas ahead of time, and that we were able to do through this Gen Visa.
Yeah, that was actually this was not an easy trip to prepare for. We actually signed up in May of 2023. And I spent a lot of time figuring out, like, how many tubes of toothpaste do I need to bring, and how much shampoo, because they don't really have that kind of stuff
Well, they had
in their
they
ship.
had very
supply.
good shampoo, but not the kind my wife needed.
No, but they didn't have enough for 930 people.
They had plenty.
Anyway, so it was, and doing all that stuff it was time consuming to prepare. Yeah, you have another question?
From the online audience.
Oh, thank you.
Who,
You mean
mine?
Al's fancy
Mine?
shirt, yeah, from Indonesia. See, I told you.
Yeah, I bought this on it. I was going to wear something a little bit less. A little bit
Little more
less.
American, a little more.
And she said, you've got to wear something that looks more like you went on this thing, so.
Okay. Any more questions at all?
Yeah, I think it was great, but I'm really impressed with the notes you must have taken.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I've referred to my journal many, many, many times to remind myself of what we did, where, when, and yeah, I didn't even do a lot of reading. I went to lectures. I was very busy. And I did my journal every day, and I collected my photos and shared a few with a special messenger group at home, and I didn't have a lot of time to just sit around and sleep. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.